the White House advisor for trade and economy, Peter Navarro, recently said that India is supposed to behave differently and that India's purchases of Russian oil are financing the conflict in Ukraine. In your view, what is Washington trying to achieve through such statements? Is this pressure an attempt to weaken the relations between our countries, or is the United States trying to force India to sign a more favorable trade agreement with the United States? Thank you.
Well, I don't want to comment on a person. We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian oil, that is China. We should do everything to stabilize the world energy markets, including buying oil from Russia. Our meeting allowed a comprehensive review of the entire gamut of India-Russia bilateral relations. We believe that the relations between India and Russia have been among the steadiest of the major relationships in the world after the Second World War. Geopolitical convergence, leadership contacts, and popular sentiment remain its key drivers. On trade and economic cooperation, I followed up with Minister Lavrov the proceedings of yesterday's meeting of the Intergovernmental Commission that I chaired with First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov. We reaffirmed our shared ambition to expand bilateral trade in a balanced and sustainable manner, including by increasing India's exports to Russia. This requires swiftly addressing non-tariff barriers and regulatory impediments, enhancing Indian exports to Russia and sectors like pharmaceuticals, agriculture, and textiles will certainly help to correct the current imbalance. Steps to ensure long-term supply of fertilizers was also taken up. Indian skilled workers, especially in IT, construction, and engineering, can address the labor needs in Russia and deepen collaboration. Sustaining energy cooperation through trade and investments is also important. We also spoke about connectivity initiatives, including the International North-South Transport Corridor, the Chennai-Vladivostok Eastern Maritime Corridor, and cooperation in the Northern Sea Route. These corridors promise to deepen economic linkages, reduce transit times, and expand trade access between Eurasia, across Eurasia and beyond. Our defense and military technical cooperation also remains robust. Russia supports India's Make in India goals, including joint production and technology transfer. The opening of two new Indian consulates in Kazan and Yekaterinburg need to be fast-tracked. That was also a subject of our conversation today. These consulates will further deepen our regional outreach and enhance trade and people-to-people ties. I took up the issue of Indians serving in the Russian army. While many have been released, there are still some pending cases with some missing persons. We hope that the Russian side would expeditiously resolve these matters. On global and multilateral cooperation, we reaffirmed our shared commitment to reform of global governance. We underlined the imperative to expand and energize the UN Security Council to reflect contemporary realities. Our collaboration in the G20, BRICS, and SCO remains deep-rooted and forward-looking. On regional issues, we discussed developments in Ukraine, West Asia, Middle East, Afghanistan. And I want to say that India's approach continues to emphasize dialogue and diplomacy as essential to resolving differences. On terrorism, we resolved to fight jointly against all forms and manifestations of terrorism. I conveyed India's strong resolve to adopt a zero-tolerance policy against terrorism and our sovereign right to defend our citizens against cross-border terrorism. I also invited the Minister to pay a visit to India to continue our dialogue. In conclusion, let me thank him and his colleagues for an open and productive exchange of views. We look forward to nurturing this relationship further in the very spirit that has underpinned it for decades. Thank you.
for the distinguished Minister Jaishankar. The White House advisor for Trade and Economy, Peter Navarro, recently said that India is supposed to behave differently and that India's purchases of Russian oil are financing the conflict in Ukraine. In your view, what is Washington trying to achieve through such statements? Is this pressure an attempt to weaken the relations between our countries, or is the United States trying to force India to sign a more favorable trade agreement with the United States? Thank you.
Well, I don't want to comment on a person, but let me comment on the subject. We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian oil, that is China. We are not the biggest purchasers of Russian LNG. I'm not sure, but I think that is the European Union. We are not the country which has the biggest trade surge with Russia after 2022. I think there are some countries to the south. We are a country where actually the Americans said for the last few years that we should do everything to stabilize the world energy markets, including buying oil from Russia. Incidentally, we also buy oil from America, and that amount has been increasing. So, quite honestly, we are very perplexed at the logic of the argument that you had referred to.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Thank you for your attention and your questions.